Guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Serena and today I'm sharing with you the trajectory of the twin flame woman. Watch this video. All right, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. If you are looking for more support on your twin flame journey, your ascension journey, or just relationships in general, check the links below. You can sign up for my relationship repair course. You can work with me or my twin one-on-one, or you can just check out all the other resources that we have available to you. But thank you so much for being here. If you're new, definitely hit the subscribe button. It really helps us, especially if you're sharing this with people you love. It really helps us to grow the channel and just to get the word out there. That's what we want to do, is we just want to get the word out there. We want more people to be having these amazing, fulfilling relationships. So the more people, the better. But today we are talking about something very, very interesting and just kind of a trend I've noticed in the people that I've talked to, the twins I've worked with. And now this video, I want to make a disclaimer on it because this video is not necessarily the most inclusive video. Because I'm talking about the twin flame woman. And this doesn't necessarily fall into, there's so much debate around the polarities, you know, the masculine and feminine, and that the runners, the masculine, the chasers, the feminine, and, you know, all of these different things, right? I want to table all of that for right now and just talk about the women in the twin flame dynamic that I have personally worked with, right? So again, you get to decide how you identify yourself. That is not for me to decide. So if you identify as a woman, this may also resonate with you. If you identify as a man, it may not, and that's okay. But I just want to talk about the women that I've worked with and a really strong trend in trajectory for the twin flame woman that's in separation. So a lot of times what I've noticed for myself and for other twin flames is that the women will a lot of the times have a very powerful narcissistic codependent relationship before they meet their twin flame. Right? So either they meet their twin and that's what catalyzes them to get out of this relationship, or they've already been out of the relationship and they're still healing from it and integrating all the lessons learned from it, right? And so usually these women are very empathic, they're very tuned into themselves, they're very independent, they've been on a spiritual path for a long time, but when they get into relationships, they tend to lose themselves and lose their voice. So the biggest block for these women is, and it's so funny to me because when I work with these women, it's like they are so tuned in to spirit. Like they know if something's off, like in a second, like they can feel it. And so the trick is, and the block is to speak up and to not doubt themselves. So the trajectory for the twin flame woman has a lot to do with reclaiming her voice. And I think this happens a lot of times in separation because what's happening here is we're balancing our masculine and our feminine polarities, right? And I know I said we weren't going to talk much about this, so we're not going to get into it too much. But when you're balancing these things out, right, you meet your twin, who's a male in this case, because we're talking about the twin flame woman, right, or who embodies that masculine energy. And so you meet them, and then that starts to become a part of you, right? This merging process takes place, and then you start to also embody those masculine principles. And a lot of times, our wounded feminines, our women, are wounded in the place of our voice or our creativity. It's not your intuition. You already know everything. You already have a strong connection with spirit. It's actually putting that thing out into the world. And so this may look like ancestral lack of voice, right? Any type of culture who has been demeaned, any type of culture who has been put down, who has lost their voice in the civilizations that we've lived in. This can also look like familial, right? So in your family, you might have been the one that was always too sensitive. You might have been the one that was, an empath or a highly sensitive person, and, nobody understood you. So your voice got squashed, right? And so these women have to reclaim that power, that voice within them. And it's through the merging of their masculine that they actually start to take action, right? Because there's no problem in the connection of their, selves, of their vehicle to spirit. It's the, bringing it forth into physical reality. And that's a very masculine trait, right? Our masculines are very connected to this earthly plane. They're very grounded. They're very practical. They're very action oriented. And so as we start to incorporate this more and more and more into our own being, then we actually start to realize the balance and how we were out of balance before, right? Maybe we felt like we didn't have a say. Maybe we felt like nobody was listening. Maybe we felt like we didn't matter enough to speak up. And so the twin flame woman will often go through these trials during their separation where just random stuff will happen. Like they'll go meet somebody for the first time or go to an appointment and they're like weirdly taken advantage of, or weirdly like just random things will happen. Something, they order something and it doesn't come back the way that it was supposed to be, or it was messed up, or somebody tries to take advantage of them. And so these things will happen repeatedly in their separation in order to make them speak up for themselves, right? Because that's an act of self-love. So they know that this person's trying to take advantage of them. And so healing that wound of the voice being stolen, it's all about reclaiming the voice and speaking up for what you know is not right, or what you know isn't accurate, or whatever that looks like for you. But the trajectory of the twin flame woman in this way opens her up to just being able to create so much freer. And it's really like this reclamation of the voice and of her own power within the physical world that actually will start to magnetize her twin back to her. Because before, if she didn't have this within herself, before what would happen is she would look to people in relationship in order to fill that. So that's why a lot of times these women get into these narcissistic relationships, is because narcissists don't have a problem with that. They don't have a problem flaunting themselves. They don't have a problem speaking up. They don't have a problem, with convincing people of their affluence or their identity. Like, they don't have a problem with that. So a lot of times the twin flame woman will have these attractions to these people because she's trying to fill that gap. She's trying to fill that wound or that gap within herself through her relationships, which is incredibly natural. There's nothing wrong with this. And in fact, we do it in order so that we can see that we have that deficiency, and so that we can learn the tools it takes to clear that within ourselves. And then, because when she feels that within herself, right, and she can fully speak for herself, she does not worry about who's taking care of her, right? She has all of her own self contained in that way, in a masculine way, right? Where she no longer fears. If someone's going to come up to her and give her shit, she's like, go ahead, because I know how to take care of myself, right? And that's a very masculine way of operating. And so when she has this all together and she's moving through this and she's using it and integrating it in her 3D life, what ends up happening is the masculine is actually attracted to that, because now she is safe enough in her mind, in her heart, in her body to sit also back in her feminine and know that she can act when she needs to, right? So this can show up two ways if it's unhealed. This can show up as a really defensive person, or this can show up as someone that never takes any action, right? So those are the two imbalances. So if you look at yourself and think about, okay, where do I get defensive all the time if someone's like, coming at me? Or it might look like, where am I sacrificing myself all the time? It's different for different people. So look at where you think that would affect you. But when that's balanced, so there's this quote that I really like, and it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. And so this means you need all the tools, but it's better to sit back in the garden, you know, in your feminine, just sit there until you need to act, right? Versus being out in the war and having no tools for it. Especially when we're traumatized from these codependent narcissistic relationships, we're going to always feel like we're in the war, especially if we're healing, right? We're in that hypervigilant state and we're healing and we're trying to figure out, you know, what things are triggering me. And I even still have this, and I'm in union. I will still have it. I just had a conversation, you know, 2 days ago with my twin about every time he comes home and I'm at home, I feel scared, like somebody's invading my space, right? And initially I thought it was about him, but really it's about how my parents used to come home as I was a child. So all of these things, you know, all of these things play into our feminine ability to protect ourselves and our feminine ability to contain ourselves. And so when we work on this and when we heal this, we no longer look for that in others, which means others are attracted to the fact that we can sit back in our feminine and not need anything from anybody because we know we're secure. And so a lot of times it's when this process has really come to like a mastery, I would say, is probably the best word I can come up with. When this process really comes to a mastery, is a lot of times when union becomes really close, is because we know we've like really like got it on lock. And then that's time for a new lesson and a new integration. And then that's when union happens, because now it's time to take all of these things you learned for separation and actually implement it within the relationship. Because that's the only real way to heal, is actually through the relationship. It's not actually through the work you're doing on your own. It is, but it's through the integration of doing it with another person that actually allows you to see different results in the physical reality. So it's such a beautiful process. But I hope this video helped you. If you are a woman in the twin flame dynamic, please, please, please share this video with other women in the twin flame dynamic. I think this is so important, and it's so important that we find our voices and that we continue to use them, even once we are in union, right? Even once you're there, it's so important to continue to use your voice, to stand up for yourself, to be true to who you are, and just keep doing your thing. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next time. Big love, Serena.